Konnichiwa, Lexus-san.
The plan for the LS400 is I'm going to keep it as a daily for a little while, and I decided that since winter is here and it is my daily driver, I'm going to need to put some money in it. So this is a list of all the parts I put in it that I got through work, and I'm going to go through that. We're going to go ahead and get this party started. I'm going to get the wheels off, and we're going to do ball joints and upper control arms. It's probably not going to be very fun. Probably going to take me the rest of the day. It's cold. Not stoked. Alright, I got one side down. It's not overly difficult, but it's not fun. Start off by loosening the top strut mount bolts, and then the bottom giant bolt. Take the cotter pin out, get this nut off, separate this ball joint, and then the knuckle can swing down and you should be able to get the shock out. The reason you have to get the shock out is so that you can actually have access to get the bolts out for the upper control arm. So this piece is where it gets a little weird. Essentially, this is the lower ball joint, and it has two bolts that attach it to the steering knuckle, as well as this piece that attaches to the tie rod end. Essentially, what you want to do is, if you're doing both ball joints like I am, attach loosely the upper control arm. That way it will support this, and it detaches from the knuckle with these two bolts. So my ball joint is still attached to this lower control arm. The old bushings are pretty toast. I was expecting this, I mean, it's very loose, but I was expecting this socket to like literally have some serious play in it. We're gonna have to see. I mean, I'm very sure that was a clunking noise, but now I'm a little worried because, like I said, I was expecting those to be worse off than they appear to be. However, technically speaking, the tolerances on ball joints are generally like within the thousandths of an inch, so it's not really something you can pick up with just feeling it. I was genuinely expecting them to be loose. So here's the old one on that side, and the new one, I ordered them through work, but we got a brand called 3.5. It's a Japanese company, so their JDM is dude. So the old ones didn't have grease zerks, and these new ones come with little grease zerks. Also, unfortunately, as you can see, my brake lines are starting to crack. It's pretty evident. That really sucks, so I'm gonna have to replace those. This thing needs brake work too. It's got the track light is on, brake wear indicators are missing, so I just got out of the junkyard. I found a little clip for that. Let's see if that works. This also does not sit flush, so I got some shims to take care of that. Alright, I'm taking this trim piece off. I'm getting a lot of wind noise, so I'm going to use a little bit of that weather stripping adhesive to see if I can seal it up a little bit. I'm pretty sure when I was driving to work in the morning, I saw some actual snow fly through, so I think there's going to be a pretty obvious gap. Alright, so this weather stripping for the cowl, I think, is loose and also making some noise. So I'm not going to be able to find these clips, and they're kind of like this shape, right? So I'm just snipping off the edge of each side of a clip so that they're kind of square, and I can just slide it in and then it'll be able to go on. Alright, so I got some weather stripping in there. Doesn't look pretty. I didn't see any major gaps, but I think it'll be okay. Hopefully it'll reduce some noise. And then this is another janky fix. This is literally heat shrink. They use this cheesy weather stripping, and it was cut and, you know, an open gap. So I just literally put heat shrink over it, put a little bit of weather stripping in the middle, just ran it down. So it's at least a little more subtle and looks a little better, but it's still kind of cheesy, but that's all it's gonna get. So the rear defroster does not work. The window was replaced. You know, the guys that did it did kind of a hack job, and you know, it's not uncommon that window guys just do windows and nothing else. I found this hanging underneath the headliner, which to me looks like the antenna of an antenna cable. And then we also have this going on over here. So when I pulled off this panel, I saw these are broken. So this right here is broken off of this section, which is no longer continuous. One of them is completely missing down here, and all of these were unplugged. So apparently we have all of these. I think the best I can do is they make repair kits where you can repair these. It's pretty difficult to get the repairs to hold, but it might be something worth trying. I'm gonna get the other side off and see how it goes. Defroster would be really nice to have in Colorado. Additionally, I got this all finalized. I ordered a new window switch and it works on all 4 in all directions, which is awesome. We can roll the windows down now. Victory. So on the passenger side, it looks like it does not have tabs. However, I don't know what this is, but it's broken. So I started off with pretty much all new fluids. However, I took it a step further and I did a bunch of BG products. So I started off with BG engine restoration, which is supposed to, it's like an engine cleaner. You run it for 10 minutes. It's supposed to knock a bunch of carbon and stuff loose. And then I did an induction service, which does the same thing. I connected it to the PCV valve and it sucks it in through the intake manifold, cleans the valves. It's like a must on new GDI engines. It's good to do on old stuff, and that will really clean it out. I did their 44K, which is just a fuel system cleaner, and then I added BG MOA in the oil, which is just an additive to, I guess, make the oil more effective at protecting your engine. It's just another additive. And then a few weeks ago, I changed out the fuel filter, which is a total pain in the butt because it's threaded on both sides and it just pukes while you're trying to do that. It was pretty annoying to do. It might have been original. I don't know. It was a Toyota filter, so. And I did a coolant flush. So at work we have a coolant flush machine. Essentially you just undo a hose and then splice into that with the machine, and it will act as the pump and it'll cycle coolant through the engine, and it'll actually force the thermostat open and just cycle about 9 quarts through the system. So opposed to like a normal drain and fill where you would do it at the bottom of the radiator and you would get like 1.5, maybe 2 quarts, we do all 9 that way. Additionally, we have a similar machine for the transmission fluid. So basically you take a tranny cooler line off and then you splice in the middle of that, and it's the same thing except the car is running, and you do it with the air and you put it in drive and it cycles all of the ATF through the transmission, and that one is about 16.5 quarts, which is quite a lot. And so last time I did the drain and fill with the tranny with the drain plug and filling it through the dipstick, that was about 1.5, 2 quarts as well. So this is flushing the whole system as opposed to just doing it that way. So this is a very good thing to do. It ensures that it's all new fluid throughout the whole transmission. Additionally, we did the same thing for the power steering fluid. So my power steering fluid was very burnt, and I believe it was aerating, and I don't know, power steering just didn't feel good. It still has a little bit of morning sickness because the rack is leaking, but it's all new fluid. It's the same kind of thing. You get 2 straws, they go in there and they cycle out old fluid and put in new. And on top of all that, you'll notice that the hood is no longer falling on me, so I got new hood struts as well to hold it up. And so under the hood, I went ahead and did the air filter as well. And we also did a new PCV valve, grommet, and hose. I only did the hose because it straight up broke. Fog light bulb was out. I believe it was this one. So the fog lights are actually yellow on these cars, as you probably know. And it's actually due to, like, there's a little dome that goes over the bulb that tints it yellow. So the whole lens isn't yellow and the bulb isn't yellow either, which I found pretty interesting. But I had to like retrofit a different kind of bulb where I just created a little terminal for the ground. I don't know, it was kind of strange. Additionally, I took the front brakes apart and did all kinds of stuff. So first of all, I emptied the reservoir and then I put new fluid in. I took the calipers apart. So something that had been happening was while I was braking, the whole car would kind of feel like it's swaying back and forth, and I thought there was 2 reasons for that. First of all, how loose my rear end was, which turned out to be true, but also what's possible is if it's braking unevenly in the front because the slides are gummed up, then that could also cause it. So I took those apart because the kid before me kind of did a hack brake job and I wanted to check it. What I ended up doing was I took it all apart. I found that the slide pins had not been lubricated when he did the brake job. The backing plates were covered in grease. I mean, it's okay, you can do that. They were just like a millimeter of grease all over the backing plate. I literally took the whole thing apart, the bracket. I went over to our parts washer, cleaned it all off. I replaced the brake lines in the front because the brake lines were cracked. The other thing is I have the low brake level indicator for the sensors on the pads. So the sensors are missing in the front because he took them off for some reason, because he couldn't be bothered to replace them. So I got those for really cheap and put those on because I want the light gone. Turns out I ordered them for both front and rear. Turns out that the rears still have them. To be perfectly honest, I was kind of hoping that the traction light would get taken care of by that. If you see where it plugs in, it's like the same connector as the wheel speed sensor. So I thought maybe that was on the circuit. I know it's kind of silly. Maybe if you don't have any brakes, it would disable traction control. I don't know. The traction control light did not get fixed by that, but I did diagnose it. So you can pull codes by connecting the, I think, 10 and ground. That might be for the Miata, but so this is where we sit as far as lights go. So nothing on, as you can see, except the track light. When I pulled codes, the codes are 24 and 45, and they both relate to the throttle position sensor. The traction control has its own throttle position sensor. I think it I'm not I'm not going to pretend like I know how the traction system control works on this car, but it's basically got a second throttle blade, which I believe cuts off a little power. Honestly, I'm just going to throw a sensor at it and see if it goes away. I've heard they're a high failure part, and so I'm just going to try it. So as you can see, I believe this is the traction control thing, and it's probably got a servo in here that uses this cable to control it to cut throttle, and then your actual throttle position sensor. So in the rear, instead of like a dual control arm setup, it has a trailing arm in the front to keep it from moving radially. They'll probably also be called radius arms or whatever, depends on who manufactures it. Toyota calls it a trailing arm. So there's a bushing that connects it to the knuckle, and that bushing was just toast. I mean, there was a bunch of up and down movement in that arm. I just used an air hammer to blast out that bushing on the outside and replace it with new ones. The new ones went in really easily because they're actually polyurethane replacements. Polyurethane bushings usually are two pieces and they just press in together and they go in really easily. So that was a really easy thing, and that actually controlled my side-to-side movement under braking when I do a big shift in momentum, like when I'm kind of going into a turn or whatever. So it really settled down the rear end from moving around a lot, which was nice. So the rear defroster actually does work now. If you turn it on, you can actually feel it, but it did snow and it melted all the snow off. Really nice to have. But I literally just soldered on spade terminals onto the areas. I'm pretty convinced that that lower one is not going to hang on. When you read about the procedure online through any kind of service data, they will tell you to check the heated mirrors first when doing any diag work on the rear defroster. It's because it's part of the same circuit apparently, because I don't think they were working before, but now that I've repaired the rear, they definitely work now. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up everything I've done to the LS400. Fixed a lot. If you enjoyed this, leave a like, comment, or subscribe, and thank you for watching.